the first game that we're going to focus on, and I'm going to run down the line first to talk about all the games, but then we're going to move into the actual details later on. We'll do the synoptic weather briefing like we typically do, and then move into the actual player impact discussion. The first game is actually Thursday night's game, and this is the Jacksonville Jaguars at the New York Jets. We're expecting winds generally 15 to 20 miles per hour with rainfall, extreme heavy rainfall, likely around 3/4 of an inch during the game. The second game that is of extreme importance is and it's funny here we don't show any shading because that's a technical difficulty here, but it's this New Orleans Saints at Cleveland Browns game. And the real thing I want you to focus on is the cold temperatures, but more specifically the near 30 mile per hour winds. This is an extreme wind event, and those are the ones that we typically really want to focus on for these impacts. The other game that is of mention that there will be some impacts here as well is the Buffalo Bills at Chicago Bears, 1 p.m. Saturday kickoff game. That's another game where we're going to see temperatures hover near 10 degrees Fahrenheit with winds over 20 miles per hour. Another wind event game. And then finally, two notable mentions. The Seattle Seahawks at the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a cold weather game, but not so much wind. And similar nature on Saturday night, we're looking at the Las Vegas Raiders at the Pittsburgh Steelers. And again, this is a game where we're going to see extremely cold temperatures, but not really significant strong winds. So I'm going to let Sean here break down the actual synoptic weather event here. Sean, I'm sharing the screen of the of the actual mean civil pressure and precipitation maps, and I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. Well, you can already see on Mike's map here, for those of you that are actually able to view it, is we have a lot of coloring here, right? So this is mean sea level pressure and precipitation. And essentially we had two systems, one following the subtropical jet and one following the polar. And kind of the energies of these two systems are going to combine to create this kind of massive superstorm. And this is a really deep system, a really strong system. And as a result, it's going to bring periods of really heavy precipitation, as Mike mentioned, especially for the Jets game between the Jaguars and the Jets on Thursday. And then as that system passes, you're going to have a lot of really, 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 really cold air and continued windy conditions over many locations across the Midwest and East Coast. So this is going to funnel in a lot of really cold air. As Mike mentioned, we have some games in and around 0 or maybe 10 degrees. And winds that are going to be in the 30 mile an hour range. And as you can see here, again, those of you can see this, the black lines there are isobars, and the tighter or closer those are, that's an indication for us meteorologists to indicate, how much wind is there in that area. And when they're really close, we know that things are pretty windy. And this is like a 960 millibar low. That is a really, really low pressure system, which means higher probability of really severe precipitation and higher wind speeds. So again, the main things with this for the games, the slate of games on Saturday is going to be the wind and the cold.
Yeah, and I just wanted to just share an image here from Pivotal Weather regarding to this cold. When you have cold air, like temperatures in the single digits, and you add wind on it, like significantly strong wind, it really drops your feels like temperatures out there. So if we go to Saturday afternoon and take a look at feels like temperatures in Chicago and Cleveland, we're talking about feels like temperatures colder than minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit, like minus 15 in Chicago. This is going to be an extremely cold feeling type of game. And when we talk about cold weather games in football, and if you look at statistics, yeah, you can see some signal in player production, but the real premier thing is wind. And in this particular event, we're going to have those real extreme cold temperatures with extreme wind that's going to push these feels like temperatures down in the afternoon to sub minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit. That's just brutal conditions to play.
It is. Yeah, and you bring up a good point, Mike. Like we've had really cold conditions before. We've seen even last year the Buffalo Patriots playoff game temperatures were near 0, I think. But very, very rarely do we have an event where it's this cold and also the wind is blowing this hard. So those are two really extreme factors that are going to play a part this week. And then, yeah, we see this on the map, right? So this is kind of a spatial map looking at the home locations of all stadiums that are hosting a game this week. And we can see the red circles around the Jets and the Cleveland Browns. Those are the games that we're big time concerned about. And then we see some yellow circles with the Steelers and the Chicago and the Kansas City as well. Those games that we're going to be monitoring, we don't necessarily expect those impacts to be overly impactful, but there are, a couple key things to bring up in those games as